To kill her drunken sleeping husband, she smeared super glue over the seatbelt buckle, then deliberately opened the sunroof halfway through the drive right in front of her son. On the surface she claimed the smell of alcohol on her husband was too strong, but in reality she was setting the stage for what was about to happen, because the car was driving along an isolated mountain road, with no cameras and no witnesses anywhere around. So when the time was right she suddenly yanked the steering wheel, sending the car straight into a lake below the mountain. Freezing water instantly rushed into the car. The woman pretended to panic and started screaming. Her awakened husband thought it was just a normal car accident, and quickly helped his wife and son climb out through the sunroof. But when he tried to escape himself, he realized the seatbelt that was supposed to save his life had now become a deadly trap. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not get it undone. Meanwhile, the woman had already swum to shore with her son. She laughed out loud as she remotely closed the sunroof. Her husband completely panicked when he saw this. He used every bit of his strength and finally managed to pry open the seatbelt buckle. But the water had caused all the electronics inside the car to stop working. No matter what he tried, he could not open the doors or the sunroof. Just when he was losing all hope, he saw his wife coming back. So he thought she had come back to save him, and frantically pounded on the car window. But his wife only pretended to try opening the door. She had risked her own life by coming back simply because she wanted to watch her husband die with her own eyes, because only then could she leave without worrying, and know that all her careful planning had not gone to waste. It turned out this was not the first husband she had killed. She had already made several $1,000,000 by killing her husbands. Her first husband was a 35-year-old programmer. After marrying him, she secretly added sleeping pills to his drinks every day, then waited until he was asleep before secretly giving him another drug, which eventually caused him to slowly lose his eyesight. Finally, she took him hiking under the excuse of going on a trip. When they reached the edge of a cliff, she said she wanted to take a picture, and asked her husband to pose for her. But just as her nearly blind husband lifted his foot, he realized his wife had pushed him over the cliff. The woman successfully inherited her husband's new house, and also collected a huge insurance payout. Because she was an elementary school teacher, the police never suspected her, and the woman had now discovered a shortcut to getting rich. Once she had spent most of the money, she started looking for her next target. This time she set her sights on the parent of one of her students, who was the second husband she had just drowned. At his funeral, the woman wore mourning clothes, with fake tears streaming down her face. But as soon as the relatives and friends left, she could not wait to get intimate with her lover. Unfortunately, her mother-in-law happened to see the whole thing. The old woman instantly realized that her son's death was no accident. She desperately tried to expose the truth, but the woman's acting was flawless. In front of everyone, she acted completely helpless, and never fought back or talked back when her mother-in-law hit or cursed at her. She even hugged her stepson tightly and promised that she would raise him until he grew up. Everyone was moved by this seemingly devoted stepmother. What was even worse was that the woman actually turned around and sued the mother-in-law. She claimed that the mother-in-law had secretly broken into her house and taken the child while she was away. Having lost her son, the mother-in-law completely lost control of her emotions in court. She could not understand how a murderer could still act so shamelessly confident. The mother-in-law's anger completely erupted in court. She pointed at the judge, the prosecutor, and the lawyers and cursed them out. She believed they were all accomplices helping her daughter-in-law. She even started physically attacking her daughter-in-law right there in court. But losing control only made the woman look even more helpless. The judge also began leaning toward giving custody of the child to the seemingly loving mother. However, just when everything seemed to be settled, one careless remark from the mother-in-law suddenly turned the entire case around.
너! 내 아들 죽은 뒤에 보험금 받고 내 아들 만나기 전에 같이 살던 남자도 갑자기 죽는 바람에 아파트 팔았잖아. 네가 우리 현수 죽인 거야, 이 탈인자 이년아.
Those words immediately caught the judge's attention. She could barely hide her excitement. It turned out this judge was no ordinary judge. She was not even human. She was a demon judge sent from hell. After making a wrong judgment while working in hell, she was banished to the human world. She had to personally judge 10 truly evil people within 1 year, and send them straight to hell. Otherwise she would cease to exist. At that moment she was wondering where she could find enough evil people. She never expected one to walk right through her courtroom door. After hearing what the mother-in-law had said, the judge realized this woman was definitely not as innocent as she appeared. So she wrote the woman's name on a mirror. Using her supernatural powers, she saw everything that had happened in the woman's past. Only then did she realize the mother-in-law had not lied at all. The woman really had killed both of her husbands, and now she was planning to harm her own stepson. It turned out the reason the woman had rescued Shoji in the first place was partly to make herself look innocent, and partly because half of her husband's insurance payout had to go to Shoji. So for the money she had to find a way to keep Shoji by her side. But that also came with a huge risk. After all, Shoji had witnessed everything that happened to his father. So the woman threatened and intimidated him every day. She told him that if he ever revealed what happened, his grandmother would be the next one to die. This little boy was under an enormous amount of psychological pressure. He lived in fear every single day. Fortunately, it was not long before the grandmother who missed her grandson secretly took Shoji back to her hometown while the woman was away. When the woman found out, she became extremely worried. She was afraid Shoji would reveal everything, so she decided to take the mother-in-law to court, hoping to use the law to get Shoji back. But she never expected to encounter a judge from hell. After the judge judge learned the whole truth. She ruled that the grandmother would receive a suspended sentence because the child willingly chose to live with her, which was essentially the same as being found not guilty. But the future custody of Shoji would still have to be worked out between the grandmother and the woman. For now Shoji was staying at his grandmother's house, and the grandmother was determined to do whatever it took to keep her grandson away from this murderous woman. When the woman realized kindness would not work, she decided to use force, but she had no idea that everything was already part of the judge's plan. Facing someone like her, the judge had no intention of letting her off easily, and now desperate to get Shoji back, the woman paid an old woman to help her. She paid an old woman to deliberately cross Shoji's path home from school carrying a pile of things. Knowing that Shoji was the kind of kid who always loved helping others, she was sure he would stop to help. The old woman could then naturally give him a thank you gift. It was a bottle of energy drink laced with sleeping pills. She claimed it would help him relax and sleep better, and his grandmother happened to have trouble sleeping every night. So when Shoji got home, he gave the drink to his grandmother. She quickly passed out after drinking it. The woman then took Shoji back to Seoul. Then she stripped him and put him in the bathtub. She claimed they were going to play a game to see who could hold their breath longer, but in reality she was simply abusing him. She forced Shoji's head underwater so he could not breathe. Then she would let go once he could barely hold on, all just to satisfy her twisted desires. But just as the woman was about to do it again, she suddenly received a mysterious phone call. The caller claimed to have evidence of her crimes, and demanded that she meet at the lake where she had killed her husband. Otherwise the evidence would be handed over to the police. Knowing she had plenty to hide, the woman had no choice but to go. But when she arrived, there was no one around. Just as she thought it was a prank and turned to leave, headlights suddenly lit up behind her. Then the woman watched in horror as her husband's car emerged from the middle of the lake and drove toward the shore. The supernatural sight left her completely terrified. Just then the judge stepped out of the car. It turned out the judge had been secretly watching her all along. As long as she dared to commit another crime, she would face punishment from hell. Even at this point, the woman still refused to admit anything. She denied abusing Shoji and murdering both of her husbands. The judge finally lost patience with her and slapped her to the ground. Then she grabbed the woman by the collar and effortlessly lifted her up, before throwing her into a nightmare specially created for her. Inside the nightmare, the woman was strapped into the back seat of a car. She would personally experience all the suffering she had inflicted on her husband. As the sunroof slowly closed, the car began to sink. Only then did the woman feel genuine fear. She struggled desperately, but it was already too late. The car slowly sank to the bottom of the lake. The woman experienced the helplessness and despair her husband had felt firsthand. But just as she was about to drown, the judge pulled her back into reality. Terrified, she fell to her knees before the judge and kept begging for forgiveness. Unable to take it anymore, the woman finally confessed to all her crimes. She admitted that she thought her first husband was useless except for the house he owned. So she secretly bought him an accident insurance policy worth 300 million. But when she learned she could collect another 200 million if he became blind, she immediately sped up her plan. And when her first husband was pushed off the cliff, she even had a smug smile on her face. After getting his property and 500 million in insurance money, she still felt it was not enough to live on. So she set her sights on a husband with 3 billion in insurance coverage. She even admitted that she only rescued Shoji for the insurance money. Her blatant greed made the judge even more furious. As a judge from hell, she had seen countless evil people, but it was rare to see someone as ruthless as this woman. So she decided to give this criminal the harshest punishment possible. She would make her experience the suffering of all her victims before she died. The next second, the woman was dragged back into the nightmare, and this time she was standing at the same cliff where she had pushed her first husband.
무슨 소리야, 새엄마. 노래는 이제부터 시작인데.
Then the woman was strapped to a chair. The judge pulled out a bag of herbal medicine, then added some special powder to it. Just like the poison the woman had given her first husband, the judge wanted her to experience the suffering of being slowly poisoned herself.
재밌었니?
제발요, 좀 보내줘.
This was the sort of judgment from hell. Anyone struck by it would die in excruciating pain. But that was not the end. After the woman died, the judge branded a mark onto her forehead. It was her ticket to the 18th level of hell. Then a vending machine by the roadside suddenly transformed into a gateway to hell. The woman's soul was instantly pulled into the 18th level of hell, filled with vengeful spirits and demons. There she would suffer torment hundreds or even thousands of times worse than anything she had experienced before. And that was probably the best example of what goes around comes around. That's all for today's story. I'm Matt, and I'll see you next time.